coming up on the Lead Ministry Podcast.
He certainly had this like financial prowess, but that doesn't really matter to me. It's like, This dude didn't have the character. He didn't have really the moral framework and fiber. And I saw through, there was a lot, like his soul, and I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but his soul was like Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
It had all kinds of holes, and there were glaring deficiencies. And he had, in a sense, become ultra successful at some really, really, really heavy personal costs.
And now your host, Josh Denhart.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lead Ministry Podcast. Grateful that you're here. We're in this new little series, 4-part series, and this is part 4 of the series that we're doing called Productivity 2.0. Meaning, you may have tried all kinds of productivity strategies. We're going to call that the 1.0. And those are often the stay up later, burn it harder, burn it at both ends, burn it in the middle, and do anything and everything that you can. The Americana dream, right? The American dream of productivity, which typically leaves us burned out. We're placed on the scales found wanting, and it just doesn't seem to pan out quite as well. So I believe that there's a better way. And that better way is looking deeper at Solomon's wisdom. So we're calling this little opportunity kind of Productivity 2.0. Bill, good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you too. I am loving Productivity 2.0, this like kind of, I guess, mini little series that we're doing. It's been so valuable for me even.
Yeah. Oh man, it's been fun. And what I've loved so far is just your input, your creativity, kind of just how our minds are percolating on this topic. And so I think that this is going to be a great value to people that are out there. Of course, what we're doing is looking at this Productivity 2.0. It is kind of gleaning some stuff that I've already put together in a full-length master course called Lead Productivity. Lead Productively. I said that wrong. Lead Productively. And it's my own course, right? But it's got all kinds of video, all kinds of downloads. It is a full-length, full steam. It is kind of like the full Monty, and you literally can get way ahead, way fast. But what we're looking at is, like we talked about on our previous podcast, this super obscure passage that so many of us have overlooked over the years. And it's nestled deep into the very ending of the book of Proverbs. And Solomon writes these special words in Proverbs 30, verses 24 to 28, and I'll read it. It says this: 4 things are small on the earth, but they're exceedingly wise. The ants are not a strong people, but they prepare their food in the summer. Rock badgers are not mighty people, yet they make their houses in the rocks. The locusts have no king, yet all of them go out in ranks. And finally, the lizard you may grasp with your hands, yet it's in kings' palaces. And so the lizard, that's who we're going to talk about today, this idea of entrance. Week 1, we talked about the ant, which is all about diligence. Week 2, we talked about the badger, which is manic hyper focus and not being overextended. We did talk in week 3 about the locust, who is super organized, though it does not have a king. And of course, this week we're talking about the lizard. Gaining entrance in front of the right people. How do you get in front of the right people? Well, we're taking a look at this lizard, right? So gaining entrance with the right people. I mean, getting in front of the right people can move you forward from a productivity standpoint and can actually like change the absolute game for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I've seen that in so many different areas. Sometimes it's not like what you're doing or who you are, it's who you get in front of.
That's exactly right. I couldn't agree more. And, there have been people, and we'll talk about this a little later, that I have seen and I've thought, you know what? I think they're going to be the master key to unlocking a huge future for me. So how do I get in front of that person? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Well, if you've been on the podcast with us for any length of time, we kind of break it down for you. We try to define it. We try to develop it. And then, of course, we're not going to leave you hanging. We're going to give you some practical strategies that you can actually make it happen. Well, what is a working definition of entrance? Well, I looked this up. It's an entrance is an opening or a passage for entering as a doorway. So an entrance is a pathway into some place. And what I'm here to say is that pathway into some place is actually getting in front of the right people. But the real question is, how do we do it? Well, an opening or a door, the opposite or the antonym of this, the opposite of entrance is blocked. Mm-hmm. You're blocked, or maybe you're restricted. So, if in fact entrance is gaining passage, then the opposite's going to be you're blocked off, you hit a wall, or maybe you're just outright restricted. And so, when it comes to getting in front of intelligent, charismatic people who can help move you forward, those people are often, because they're so gifted, like they're hard to get in front of.
Yeah, they're restricted. Yeah, absolutely.
And often, go ahead.
Well, I think wisely, probably, that people who you probably want to be in front of for certain things, they have put things in place specifically to keep you from getting access to them. Because it actually goes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is we need to focus, right?
That's
and so
right.
If that person's in this position of importance, man, their time is valuable. And so they put obstacles in place for their time.
And sometimes they put people in place as a gatekeeper to go, nah, actually you don't get to get in front of this person.
Exactly.
And
you don't just get to set an appointment with the president,
Right. You have to go through the chief of staff. There's all of these barriers that restrict us from gaining entry with super powerful and important people that could help us move forward. But guess what? The wisdom of Solomon, he's saying, interestingly enough, the lizard, he's not all that powerful. You can literally pluck him up with your fingers, but how did he find a way directly in front of the king? How did that happen?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so that's what that's talking about, huh? So it's like the idea there is that lizards, and maybe we don't experience this as much in, where
like
we are
Midwestern culture.
But if you go down to like Florida, or you go down to like a warm area, they're like everywhere. I was just in the Dominican Republic, and it's like I walk into my room. It's on the 3rd floor, right? The door is locked. Walk in, there's a little tiny lizard in there running around.
Right? And so it found a way in. And that's what we're talking about today. So as we dig a little bit deeper, right, let's develop this further. We know that the definition of entrance is to gain passage, maybe through a door. The opposite of that is you're blocked, you're restricted, you got walled off, you've got things that are holding you at bay. Well, so what does the Bible say about entrance? Well, it says that the lizard, you can grasp it with your hands, but it's in king's palaces. It made it past all of the barriers. Nothing seemed to stop it. And so it gets past the moat, it gets past the guards, it got past the chief of staff, and it's literally standing in front of the king. How in the world did it get there? And so that's kind of the concept that we're dealing with today. And as we were talking just a bit ago, I want to get in front of the right people because from a productivity standpoint or from a moving to the next level standpoint, there are people who I can see they're gonna not only just maybe not even just their skills, but because of who they are, they can open other doors. They can actually go, hey, by the way, here's 5 keys that are going to blow open your future. I'm in. I would love that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just have this thing going through my head of there's like this popular YouTuber out there who he's like, I have one thing that I know is true. And that's that if you are wearing a high-vis vest and you are carrying a ladder and a tool bag, you can get in any place, any secure place in this country. And so he'll like go to like a concert where it's sold out and no one's getting in. And he just walks up there in that outfit with a ladder and a tool bag, and they're like, right this way, sir. Yeah. Come right in.
Me and my 2 boys actually watched that, and my son is like, Dad, this guy's kind of awesome. And so yes. He's kind of like the lizard, where he's like, okay, I mean, you know, like a chameleon can change its outer appearance to kind of blend in. And this dude is like, I got a better one. All I got to do is look like a construction worker. I carry a ladder. I carry a tool bag. And people are like, right this way, sir. Right?
He must be here to fix something.
He must be here to fix something. And so that's his cover story to get in. And I'll never forget that there's a guy that I knew, and he was, you know, kind of a burgeoning musician, and he really wanted to learn the business. And so he would go to all of these different Christian concerts, and he would say, my one goal is to get into the green room and to get backstage and to just hobnob with these people who have made it to where I want to get there. Yes. I want to be the guy. How do I get in front of those people? And so jokingly, as I talked with him, I said, well, okay, well, did you ever get in? And he said, I got in a lot. And I said, well, what did you do? And he said, I actually became very friendly with the gatekeeper and the dude who was wearing the badge that says no access beyond this point. And so he would just make friends with them. He would talk with them. He would, you know, talk the lingo, share the language. And before too long, he found himself with his very own badge. And so through relational savvy and milk in the system, he got through, and he got to go, not in this case in front of the king, but in front of some influential people because he wanted to learn the business.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool he was able to do that.
And so I want to jump a little bit deeper and ask this question. Well, where would we begin, right? What's the way to gain entrance? And with that one dude with the music thing, I mean, his way of entrance was relationally working the channels with the one dude who stood at the door, and if he knew he could win that guy over, that guy would gain him access. He was the gatekeeper, and he just had to become friends with the gatekeeper. Sounds easy enough, right? Well, here's a quick myth about entrance. Myth number 1 says this: smart leaders are a resource unto themselves. False. The reality is smart leaders chase leaders. And so all of a sudden, a really smart leader goes, ooh, that guy. He has skills, abilities, assets, knowledge. I would love a shortcut. I bet that guy can get me there. And so then I chase him, and I figure out how to get in front of him. And I've done this many times. So there's really 2 questions. Number 1 question is who to get in front of. And question number 2, how in the world do you get in front of them? So sounds pretty basic, but I want to gain entrance with the right people. Okay, fine. Who are those people? We'll talk about that. But second, once I figure out who they are, how in the heck do I get in front of them? Well, let's talk about this first question. Who do I want to gain entrance with? Well, it's typically somebody who has skills or abilities or character traits or achievements, maybe knowledge that I want.
Yeah, that's so good. I actually read a book recently. It's called The Who, Not the How. And it talks about how often when we approach somewhere where we want to go or somewhere we want to be or someone we want to be ourselves, we go like, what are all the things that I need to do to get there? What are the skills I need to develop? What are all these things that I need? And often the right question to start with is who is already where I want to be? Right?
Bingo.
Who is already where I want to be? Once I identify that person, they're going to be the people who I need to, those are the types of people I need to surround myself with and I need to get in front of in order for me to get there.
100%. It's really about who you know, not about what you know. It's a little bit of both, right? But truly, It's about relationships, and it's about figuring out who has skills or abilities or character traits, who has knowledge that I would love to have, because maybe it took them 20 years to get that. I wonder if in 20 hours I could glean the vast majority of that from that person.
Yes, absolutely.
And so how do I get in front of those people? So I figured out who it is. By the way, it's character, it's skills, it's an ability that they have. But how do I gain entrance? Well, here's what I have found, and I want to hear what you think. Mm-hmm. I believe it's providing value to others will get you in front of others.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll tell you one way that I see this play out, and it's a really interesting tactic that people use all the time in business. Is even for somebody who wants to like sell their product to somebody. Yeah. Often, you think about that like from the outside as like a sales pitch to someone. Which actually is better to do is to actually build a product for them, to actually like showcase how I'm going to add value to your life, and then use that as your like kind of
as your calling card. That's your calling card.
Absolutely. And bonus points if you can do something for them for free that gets you in their good graces, because then they say, hey, you've already provided value to me. And people are just reciprocal people. If you do something for somebody, they automatically think, well, I'm not the type of person who doesn't value when somebody gives me something or somebody does something for me. So now I want to reciprocate. And how can I do that? Well, I can share my knowledge. I can share how I got here.
That's exactly right.
All of these things.
The funny thing is it's called the law of reciprocity. Mm-hmm. And what it is there's this we are social beings, and I'm not going to get weird about it, but let's just go back to caveman days, right? Like I'll say me and you are in a cave together, and all of a sudden I want to learn about that dude over there. And he's got something that he has a way of tackling and skinning a bison and cooking it up real nice. And I want to know that, right? And so I do something valuable to them because we are communal beings. Guess what? Mm-hmm. We feel this sense of when somebody does something good for us, we feel a sense of like obligation to do something back for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the law of reciprocity. And so what you're saying is if I do something really big and I bless someone, they're going to feel a sense of indebtedness to me, a social indebtedness, and they're going to want to give back to me. That's the way that it works. And so therefore, this idea of me providing value to somebody ultimately, and by the way, this is not like some kind of a trickery. This is just human nature. It's the law of reciprocity.
Which is true. I mean, you could think about it. I mean, you could be really, I guess, cynical about it and say, oh, I'm only doing this to do this. But in reality, like it actually aligns really well with who we are as Christ followers.
That's true.
Because just at the end of the day, we're called to serve people. That's so right. if you can serve somebody, you're doing that because you're a Christ follower and you want to serve somebody else. And the result of that is better relationship that may lead to gain for both of you. That's exactly how we should be understanding it.
That's exactly right. And so here's a quick story back in my day. I was a young, maybe 23, right? And I was so on fire. I was loving, and striving to walk with the Lord as best I could. And there was a pastor who was at my church, and he was a busy guy, but man, he was godly. And he had basically everything that I would ever want. He had wisdom. He had patience. He had all of the traits, including Bible knowledge. And he could preach, and it was like everything that I ever wanted to be. And so I found myself on Saturday mornings being a service to him. And I would go in on a Saturday morning when he was doing his final preparation for his sermon, and I would come in and plop myself down in his office, and he would run his sermon to me.
Wow.
And I would listen, and I would provide just micro feedback when he asked. He didn't do it like verbatim, but he just gave like kind of the big picture point by point. And it was like a dry run of his sermon. And then sometimes he would say, I don't know, man, what do you think? Does that play well? And I would say, William, this makes me think of a scripture. Oh, that's great. That's great. And so then I gained significant entrance with him because I was a sounding board. And he didn't have anybody else to do that. And so I would surrender my Saturday, which was of value to him. And I just got to be around the crazy guy. And I gained tons of entrance with him, right? He ended up bringing me into his home. He ended up introducing me to his wife. He ended up having me over to dinner to his house all the time. He ended up coming to me at a lunch that we were at a Chinese place. And he said, I want to ask you an important question. I could cry. He said, I want to ask you an important question. He said, in 25 years of ministry, I have been waiting to find a guy like you that I could pour my life into. Would you be willing? And I was like, oh, are you kidding me? Like, I've been waiting all of my 2.5 years of being a Christian to have a dude like you say that to me. And but it started by me placing myself in front of him as much as I possibly could. And it was helpful to him. And ultimately, it shaped the ever-loving lights out of my life, you know?
Yeah, I love that. That's so good. And I think the other thing about this, that I think there is something that prevents us from being like the lizard. And what I think it is that often we assume that people in these high positions don't want to have anything to do with us, would not respond to that. But honestly, when a lot of times what I found is that when I get in front of people and I ask them genuinely for their help and their expertise, people are desperate to be able to give back, and they're desperate to be able to share and pour into people in their lives. And, you know, there's time constraints, there's all those things, but I've reached out to people and they're like, I thought it was going to be a no. And they're like, no, let's set up a call. Let's talk. It's amazing. It's just, you just have to ask.
You have to ask. So I read someplace rather trustworthy, you receive not because you ask not.
Right.
And
so it's absolutely true.
Just the idea of asking, you're like, oh my word, I can't believe that I got this. Well, there's several things at that point. Don't show up to that meeting unprepared. That's first.
Yes.
Don't show up late to that meeting, and don't be a dud.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I could share so many examples of this. I've had, there's a guy in my circle. He's a high wealth financial advisor guy. He only takes clients over like $100 million.
Oh, and my soul.
He also is like, I don't know how to say this in guy terms without being weird about it, but the man is chiseled. Okay. Like
he's just ripped. He's
zero body fat. Right.
Yeah.
And I got to talking with him one day about like what he does for working out and stuff. And he's like, well, I got this home gym in my basement and I work out all the time. And he's like, I'm super into it. And he's like, I've been making workouts. He's like, I don't know what to really do with it. And I was like, this is weird. Can I just work out with you? Can I just like come over? And he's like, yeah. He's like, yeah. He's like, I can't wait to show you my gym. I can't wait to do all this stuff. And he's like, you've been giving me pointers anytime I have a question.
Because he's super proud of what he's built.
Exactly. And so it was like, I thought it could be weird, you know, like it could be weird to invite yourself to someone else's house in their home gym and talk to them about their personal fitness. But man, he's been so open and so open-handed to want to help me. Like he wants to see success and he wants to help me. And so it's like, that's just a small little story. Another one was, there was a guy who was doing some technology stuff on Twitter that I thought was amazing. I'm like, I got to get into this. I'm super fascinated by this thing. And he's the CEO of a string of companies, of a string of tech companies. And so on Twitter, like literally it was still Twitter at the time. I know it's X now, but it was Twitter at the time. I sent him a message and I said, hey, this little piece of your business, I know a lot about. Can we talk? Like, can I talk to you and we can talk about this aspect of technology? Send him an email. And I thought, there's no way this guy's going to ever respond to me. He gets back to me within an hour and is like, let's set up a Zoom call. And he gave me like 2 hours of his time to talk through these issues. And to this day, we're still talking about technology-wise. So
invaluable. Okay, so here's another random story. This is not This is a story that I have learned from another leadership guru guy. It's not my story, but it's called The Lawn Boy. And so this young cat, he was in his early 20s. He came to this multi-millionaire, had the boldness to knock on his front door and say, hey, I have heard amazing things about you, and all I really want is to be mentored by you. Would you be willing to give me an hour a month, an hour a week, anything that you would give? And the guy, again, he like what are our antonyms, right? No,
Block.
and block, and resistance, and no entrance. And he said, I'm far too busy to do that. I have all of these different things going on, blah, 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 blah. And then the kid said, no problem at all. Would you be willing to allow me to mow your lawn for the next year for free? And he said, there it is right there. There's my truck. There's my big, huge commercial mower, and there's my weed whip. And I'll mow your lawn for the next year for free. Would you be willing to allow me to do that? And the guy was like, okay, whatever. And so the kid started mowing his lawn faithfully. And after a couple of months, the rich guy came out with 2 glasses of lemonade. And after he was done, they sat on his front porch, and he was just like, hey man, tell me your story. And so then through that, the kid worked his way into a significant relationship with Guy, and he ended up getting what he wanted, which was mentorship with a multimillionaire, and he got the knowledge. But it took him mowing the dude's lawn for months at a time for free. I like that story.
I do like that story too. Yes.
So really,
that's awesome.
One of my favorite passages in the Bible is found in Proverbs 30, verse 27. It says, do you see a man skilled in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before obscure men. And this dovetails so beautifully. Don't forget, of course, I know that Proverbs is all of these little pithy little standalone statements. However, this is rather close to, in proximity, Proverbs 30, 27. It's just a couple verses away from when we just gain this story of the lizard who gains entrance. You can pluck him up with your hands, but he's in front of a king. So how do you get in front of a king? A man skilled in his work. So do you see a man? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you know what I love about that is, someone could hear an episode like this and they could say something like, oh, you just want to hobnob with important people, Like that's all you're trying to do is hobnob with important people. And it's like, no, actually, that's not it at all. That's not it at all. What you're doing is if you can add value and you are skilled, you will be able to find entry into those things, before those people who can get you even further. And so it's not about
the key.
It's not about an disingenuous, I just want to rub shoulders with important people. It's about an intentional, I'm going to be so good in front of these people and with these people that I'm going to build a relationship that's going to be mutually beneficial.
And they're going to further me. I'm actually going to become more productive in an expedited way because of this relationship. It has nothing to do with hobnobbing or name dropping. Okay.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. That's surface level ridiculousness. What this is like the depth of my own character building. And I want to make that happen fast. I want to make my skill development. I want to get there as fast as I can, and other people can help me. And so if I'm skilled at my work, other people are going to go, oh, come with me, son. Come with me.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
And one interesting thing is that I got to tell this story, and this is a little bit of an anti-story, but I think it's worthy of sharing. I haven't told this story for a long time. So I was at our church, and I was a pastor at our church, and there was this guy, and he was a big dog. We're talking, the $100 million dude, and had this just clout wherever he walked. He was a big guy. He had the stature. He had the 3-piece suit. All of the thing. He had the beautiful wife. I'm not trying to say that should make. He just had the appearance of hyper success. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I wasn't overly impressed with him, but he came up to me at church one day and he goes, hey man, what's new in your life? what have you been working on? And I didn't really know him that well. And this is way back in the day when I was first creating my very first science vacation Bible school. And I said, well, I'm kind of creating this thing. And he goes, I am super interested. Can you tell me more? And I said, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And he goes, okay, but stop everything. He goes, how are you going to deliver that in a scalable way? And I said, oh, you brought up a great question. I have this automated e-delivery system. And he goes, okay, time everything out. I'm extremely interested in what you're talking about. That's very intriguing to me. Would you be willing to meet with me so that I could listen to your idea? And I said, that'd be fantastic. And I said, so tell me like what this might look like so I could be effectively prepared. And he goes, well, I mean, I do business consulting with people and people come to me with their ideas and I'm going to give them advice to make sure their idea absolutely flies. And I said, oh, that's fantastic. Now, what does something like that typically cost? He goes, typically around 25 grand. And I was like, okay, so don't miss that meeting.
Yep.
Right? So I was like, okay. So
that's amazing.
So I really prepare and I prepare a PowerPoint that really lays out the essence of what I'm doing, which, by the way, even the creation of that PowerPoint solidified in my mind my business model. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So now, true story. I mean, I haven't thought of this for years. I show up and there's a guy that meets me at the door and he said, hey, I'm so-and-so. I am this guy's handler. And I said, what? And he goes, yeah, like I manage his schedule. And I said, so what do you do exactly? And he said, well, more than anything, I'm the gatekeeper and I tell people when their time is done and I'll interrupt in just a minute and tell him that you're here and he'll give me a certain look if you need to be on ice for a while and then I'll keep you on ice. And I was like, what is going on here, right?
That's
and
crazy.
Yeah. And so this dude goes, okay, your time is now, and so here I am in front of the king, so to speak, whatever. And I'm in front of this dude and I lay out my plan and he is mesmerized. And he said, he goes, I don't know anything about the digital economy. He said, this is outstanding. You're going to kill this. And then he wanted to start meeting on a regular basis. I'm not kidding about this. And I was super enamored, right? I was like, wow, this guy? I'm in a sense educating him about a brand new economic model that he doesn't know anything about. He was kind of an old school business guy and he was intrigued by this new thing. That's fine. So we started to hang out. We started to talk a little bit, but I'm going to be honest with you. It didn't take very long before I realized I don't know if this is a guy that I'm willing to allow his subtle influence to shape my life. He didn't have the type of character that I really wanted to emulate. He certainly had this like financial prowess, but that doesn't really matter to me. It's like this dude didn't have the character. He didn't have really the moral framework and fiber. And I saw through, there was a lot, like his soul, and I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but his soul was like Swiss cheese. Yeah. It had all kinds of holes and there were glaring deficiencies. And he had, in a sense, he had become ultra successful at some really, really, really heavy personal costs to his family, to his own soul development, and all of these things. And so here I am now, this lizard in front of this guy, and he wants to hang out with me all the time. And I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so then I had to become a lizard in a brand new way, which is it's okay to lose your tail and get the heck out of there.
That's so true.
Because a lizard has the capacity in danger to lose body parts. And they're one of the only species to be able to quickly regenerate their lost body parts.
Yeah, that's amazing. And actually, that's so true. Like, I love that story because it's a cautionary tale, right?
It is.
You might idolize or really look up to or just be enamored by somebody who is ahead of you and where you want to go. But we have to be really careful about who we get in front of and who we stay in front of because that does influence who we are.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, like, I was like, wow, look where he got. And then I thought, look at the serpentine path that he had to go down to get there. I don't want anything to do with that.
Right. Absolutely.
And I lost my tail, and I graciously bowed out. And so that's an important piece. Well, thanks for letting me entertain that story. But how do you gain entrance? You're useful. You're useful. You have skills that others want. You see, a lizard finds the way. If there's a wall, climb it. If there's a moat, swim it. If there's a crack, squeeze through it. And that's what the lizard does. Again, this cautionary tale, sometimes you find yourself in front of the right people. Sometimes you find yourself in front of the wrong people. Use discernment. Your own personal values will help dictate some of that. And, but I got to be honest with you. Another thing is, do you have time? Sacrifice it. Because you can find a way to get in front of people. Is there a paywall? Pay for it. I pay for courses all the time. I just spent $750 on a course to learn how to be a better public speaker. And a good close friend of mine, he's like, bro, you're already a gifted public speaker. What are you talking about? I said, well, I would love to get better. And this dude on this online course, he's a better public speaker and he's got skills that I want. I'll pay $750 to get in front of him. Now, did I get physically in front of him? No, but I bought his course and I got plenty of entrance with the guy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay. Have you ever been rejected? I sure have. Rethink it. And all of a sudden, I think in my mind, Bill, like, I think of, okay, how do I put this? Like the old school Soviet Union, USSR, like gate with guards and razor wire and guns, and everybody's like this big arm that lets cars through or doesn't let cars through. Like, that is a barrier, and that's saying no entrance here. And so I'm like, okay. Maybe something good's on the other side. Maybe I should dig a hole and go under that barrier. Yeah. Maybe I should go 150 miles and go around it. Maybe I could parachute in. So the options are limitless for the creative lizard-minded person who wants to gain access.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It takes a level of creativity. You can get there. You just gotta think it. So I want to tell you now a story about the busy senior pastor. What I ended up doing is I made it about him. Now, this isn't the story of Pastor Jim, where I sat in front of him on every Saturday and listened to his sermons. This was now my first pastoral job, and the staff team had just gone through a restructuring right before I started, okay? And it used to be 11 leaders. And they sat around with the senior pastor and the executive pastor, all 11 leaders, and they all knew each other really well. Well, interestingly enough, I came along and I was now the 12th. And they said, oh, this is too big, too many. And they had a new structure where it was 4 dudes and everybody else reported to those 4 dudes. I was now on the outside. Yep. I was just starting out and I was like, ooh, this isn't as good for me. So I came to the senior pastor with my boss. So it's us 3 in a meeting. And I said, hey, here's the thing. All 11 of these dudes know you really well, and they know when you have that weird look. Are you thinking or are you mad? I don't know what that look means. You need me to know what that look means. And he's like, and I said, so I'm just suggesting, what would it look like if we met for 6 weeks? And he goes, I really don't have time for that. You're going to have to meet with your boss. We got this new restructuring. I'm trying to protect my time. And I was like, I'm not giving up here. And I said, here's the deal. You're going to need me to defend you, and I'm going to be willing to defend you. But I don't know you the way that you need me to know you so that I can defend you. And I had all these on the fly. I had all these reasons why it would be advantageous for him. And at the end of it, he goes, okay, this is good. I'll give you 6 weeks. And I left that meeting and my boss was like, what the heck just happened? You just talked him out of his idea 3 times over and he let you go. He let you get away with this. And then guess what? It was 6 months later that I was still meeting with him every week for breakfast. And I gleaned so much. So you got to just not take no necessarily for an answer. Listen, take great pains to get in front of great leaders. How do you gain entrance? Okay, maybe it's a book. Maybe you want to gain entrance with a guy who's been dead for 450 years. Read his book, man. Courses,
Yep.
trainings, seminars, memberships, mentorship, but also straight up just asking. Well, at the end of the day, I think this is a fantastic topic that we've touched on here today about gaining entrance, get in front of the right people. Am I right, Bill?
Yeah, it's been amazing. And I just want to encourage people, you gotta start moving this direction, and don't limit yourself before you ask. Start with the ask. Like I've proven this over and over again. Find those people you want to be like and get in front of, and ask them for some of their time.
Yes. Now I have to tell one story. I know we're going a little bit long today, but this is a powerful story. So I had a young guy, and I liked him a lot. And I had a lot of traction with him, and I'd spent a lot of time with him. I was his youth pastor for a while, and he had a couple of bumps in the road, and I really took some time and spent time with him on a Sunday morning, and I was like, man, you need to clean your life up, and here's what you need to do. You're a great guy, you got great gifts, but you're kind of jacking it up a little bit. And he goes, hey man, could we meet together? And I said, absolutely. So we met together, I carved out some time, and I poured into him, and he was like, man, these things that you're saying are life-changing. And I said, okay, there's two of them, right? This one, and you're bought in? He said, 100%. He gets a hold of me the next week, and he's like, hey man, can we meet again? And I said, no problem. Quick question, did you do those two things? And he said, nope. And I said, well, the only thing I got to say to you, if we meet again, is you need to do this, and you need to do this. You were in super agreement with me the last time we met, but you didn't do those two things. Mm-hmm. I don't got anything else to say until you do those two things. How about you do those two things, and then you come talk to me? Guess what? I've never heard from him since. And so he gained entrance, but he didn't get to retain entrance. Yes. Because successful people want to pour in and see other people become successful. Don't waste my time. Don't blow me off. Don't not do the things that are clearly the most important things for you. So at the end of the day, once you get entrance, be a worthy candidate. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, gang, this has been good. This has been a fun little series about Proverbs 30 and these 4 small things that are on earth, but they're exceedingly wise. We want you to be exceedingly wise as well. So grateful that you're here, and we will catch you guys on the next one.